it felt like many, many years went by before the Supreme Court finally took on a Second Amendment case when it took on the New York Rifle and Pistol Club versus Brewing case a few years back, which ultimately gave the right for citizens of the United States to carry outside their home from coast to coast, that states couldn't say you weren't allowed to carry a gun outside your home. And since then, we've seen kind of a doubling down of anti-Second Amendment efforts, and the Supreme Court has picked up a few cases since then, but there's even been more cases that they've just kind of put their fingerprints on, that they just touched or sent back. And it just seems to, it feels like a back and forth of we're taking your rights, now we're giving them back, now we're taking more, now we're giving them back, now we're taking even more. And ultimately, there's a case that I believe the Supreme Court is going to take up, and I'm going to talk about why here in a second, that should eliminate all permits to purchase or all permits to carry from coast to coast. And this is a big one because, for example, in California, you have to have a permit to buy, you have to have a permit to carry, you have to permit to own. It's ridiculous in many, many states around this country. And even if you have a permit to carry, like I have a permit to carry in Missouri, but there's many states that don't recognize my permit, it's a hot mess. So what is this? Let's get to this. Well, ultimately what happened is, again, in the state of New York, what was taking place was that they still were requiring, so they said, yeah, you can carry a gun, but you need a permit. You still need to have a permit. And this permit was being determined by the police department. So whatever city you're in or whatever county you're in, the sheriff or the police department will decide. They have the ultimate authority to allow you to get a permit to purchase guns and ammo in the state of New York, which clearly was shut down by the Brewing case. So ultimately, a man filed suit against the state of New York, saying that they are violating his Second Amendment rights according to the New York Brewing case from the Supreme Court. And that ultimately made it to the Second Circuit Court, which put a stay in place allowing New York to continue to do this while they heard the case. So they filed it even higher to the Supreme Court. And then the Supreme Court rejected the case, sent it back to the Second Circuit Court, ultimately saying we're not going to see this case right now because the Second Circuit Court is seeing it right now. But then the Second Circuit Court ultimately dismissed this case, made it absolutely moot because the state of New York went ahead and issued this man a permit. So the Second Circuit Court was ultimately saying, well, you have no argument. You can't say they denied you a permit because they issued you a permit. Now, here's where it's going to make it back to the Supreme Court, because ultimately then it was argued that, yes, the city granted the permit, but it could be taken away at any moment. They could take it away at any moment, or they could refuse to renew it when it expires. One of those things. So it's kind of this ongoing threat. So they filed for a rehearing with the Supreme Court. And that's where we're at right now. And I do believe that this is going to play out like this, and they will take it. Because the only reason the Supreme Court rejected it the first time was because it was playing out in the Second Circuit Court. Well, now that the Second Circuit Court made it moot and dismissed the case, it absolutely clears the path for this case to make it to the Supreme Court. And what I believe will come out of that is it will eliminate permit to carry, permit to purchase, or permit to own from coast to coast. Now, what will happen? Well, everybody's going to double down on the anti-Second Amendment efforts, just like they did. So will it open up permitless carry, permitless purchase, permitless ownership from coast to coast? Legally, yes. But as we've seen, it's only going to get worse in those states. And then it's just going to be that back and forth and back and forth and back and forth of, we're taking your rights. No, now you get them back. Now we're taking more, and now we're getting them back, that sort of thing. So I do believe that the Supreme Court is going to take this case. It absolutely is the same reason they took the Bruen case. It's just a little more technical than the Bruen case. But other than that, it's pretty much the same thing. So they are going to take it. I do believe that they're going to grant us permitless carry, permitless purchase, permitless ownership from coast to coast. And then the fight is going to begin on the state and county levels. So there you go. We'll see how this plays out, but that's my prediction just based on historically how it's played out over the last 4 years. And nothing much has changed at all. So I do believe this is how it's going to play out. Any thoughts or insight on any of this, definitely put it below. I do want to take a moment and say that most people watch this channel, hey, they're not subscribers. Click that subscribe button. It greatly increases the algorithm and our ability to get these messages out. That link is below. But most important part of this channel, we take prayer requests. So please don't ever, ever hesitate to send that in. Thank you for watching this episode of God, Family, and Guns. And as always, love God, love your family, and love guns.